the largest cocktail party. Our buddy was just in here. How do you give Josh Pate food poisoning? That's number one. Nevertheless,
don't eat the gator. Don't eat the gator.
Gator's actually not one it's going to give you food poisoning. I mean, someone who lives on the bayou. I'm just going to say this, but I'm going to start off this segment by easily starting here. Carson Beck needs to be in conversations. He's on the outside looking in. He needs to be in Heisman conversations. I mean, look, Joe, he is playing as good as there comes. And it was a splattering. There's not one thing that Florida did better than Georgia. Not one. Graham Mertz was literally feeling pressure from everywhere. He was getting hit all game. Billy Napier with the stupidest call maybe of the season. You're going for it on fourth down. You snap it in between the quarterback's legs. You're trying to get ATN on the outside to throw a double pass. Run the sneak. It was so stupid. But what I said, and I know that Florida is maybe not necessarily the best wide receiver corps from this point and people for this take to go get home for most people, but they're better than Auburn's. And that secondary is freaking good. This defense is good. And, Joe, the take that I had all week is everybody said, what are they going to do without Brock Bowers? What are they going to do without Brock Bowers? First off, Delp made one of the most ridiculous – their backup tight end made one of the most ridiculous catches that you will see. But this is what Kirby was built under Nick for. When they have an injury like this, they hone and lock in, okay? What did y'all think was going to happen? And I'm not saying it's a blessing in disguise that Bowers went down. It's not. You want your best player there.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay? But if it's going to happen – you should not feel good about Brock Bowers going down. But guess who's back? Back again. Shady's back. And his name is Ladd McConkey. Or as we call him on this show,
oh my God.
Ladd McConkey is back. The Mahonky's back.
I knew this was coming.
Did you see the best generated AI image of the week? It was Ladd McConkey, and he was sitting on a donkey. McConkey on a donkey.
McConkey the honky on a donkey.
The McConkey the honky on a donkey. 6 catches, 135 yards, arguably one of the best route runners in all of college football, 22.5 yards per catch. He had a massive day. But Dominic Lovett, man, 83 yards, Joe, 20.8 yards a catch. They found weapons. They're back. If they didn't really go anywhere. People were just overreacting, in my opinion. But they're back. Here's Georgia, man.
A lot of people didn't want to listen when you say Georgia starts slow. Georgia treats the beginning of the season like it's the preseason. They take their time. And they also were dealing with injuries. It was going to take a couple of weeks. Dude, they're not back to where they were last year because they lost a lot, but they're not very far off. And I know that they're still slowly getting healthy. But a performance like that against a credible opponent, this is not a slouch Florida team. This is not bottom of the conference Florida team. This is a quality opponent that they, as we have deemed it, a splattering. They splattered them. I think for me, what is a clear indication that Georgia is in full Thanos mode, that they're in full steam ahead, plowing through everybody, is the way that they ran the football. The fact that Dejon Edwards has 95 yards and 2 touchdowns, and Kendall Milton goes for 55 and a touchdown. To get those guys back into the mix when they've had so much trouble finding rushing lanes is why the rest of the SEC should be fearful. There are other teams in the country that are surging right now, but have difficult games on their schedule. Georgia's going to finish unscathed. I don't see, with the momentum that they have, if this was the beginning of the season and they played Tennessee, maybe we can make the argument, but they have too much momentum right now to lose to any of these teams until they get to the SEC championship game.
All right, we have some big breaking news happening. We'll get to
the Harbaugh thing.
Yeah, the Harbaugh thing. We'll get to in just a minute. We have a lot of people sending it to us. We'll talk about it in just a second. I just want to address it. Do I think that Georgia is going to go unscathed? The likelihood is yes, they will. But They do have Missouri this week to determine the East. They do have Ole Miss. Okay. Now, I'm not saying that either one, like, I'm not picking Mizzou to win. I'm not picking Ole Miss to win. But it can happen. One of those teams can't sneak up and beat them if they're not on their game. They're about to hit a stretch of their schedule here where they're facing some really good offensive teams. I think Ole Miss is hitting some strides here a little bit. Okay. Let's find out what happens with Ole Miss. They're still in this mix here, Joe, whether people like it or not. People want to call them Fugazi or Fugazi. Regardless, they're still an 8-1 football team. They play Texas A&M this week, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
But we're about to find out how really legit this secondary is. I know that you have been pretty off with Brady Cook, but this wide receiver core from Missouri is not a slouch.
They haven't faced a secondary as good as Georgia's. Georgia might have the best secondary in the country, just in terms of pure talent.
They do have the best secondary in the country. I agree. They haven't. I can't deny that. Okay. And that game will be at home in Athens. Doesn't stop the fact for me, though, Joe, that Missouri does have the potential to score here and could make some things interesting. But I don't know how interesting because the team that I just saw, and look, I want to make this known. It was a fantastic win. Absolutely fantastic win. They pushed around Florida. Florida's secondary, here's something for you LSU fans. Florida's secondary got absolutely torched by a guy that people didn't think was that good 3 weeks ago in Carson Beck. They got wide receivers in Mahonky and Lovett that did a lot of good things. Joe, I don't think that we focus on Georgia a lot of times. And what we don't talk about, it's not easy to replace everything that they just had go to the NFL, and they keep doing it. This is, I got to be real with you. This is a little bit of, he is Saban. Like, until he starts doing some things a little bit more, he's Saban. He's the new version of it. He's the bowl cut version of it. He was around him the most. Kirby Smart was the only coach that's ever been around Saban the longest time. It is his mentor. They talk more than anybody. And look what he's doing. I still think Georgia goes unscathed, but it would not surprise me if those two teams would beat them. But I don't think what we talk about enough is how crazy it is what they're doing. And they have to replace everything that they have to replace. But Billy Napier, that was one of the worst called games I'd seen, just being real with you.
Well, okay, I don't know why we can never consecutively put faith in Billy Napier to call two good games in a row.
Never.
You should always anticipate the week after he has a really good game for him to shit the bed, because it's just been that way for his entire time that he's been a head coach. He's just been so freaking inconsistent, and we know that the obvious hurdles that they had. Even if he called a good game, though, how much was it really going to help him? How much was that actually going to put them in a position to do anything?
Their doors would have been blown off. But
yeah,
they're not good. They're not good in the secondary. They have talent. It's not as if that Florida does not have talent in that secondary. They do. Their secondary is not that good. The defensive line, dude, did you watch the game that I watched? Because I'm sitting here watching Edwards going 16 carries for 95 yards and 2 scores. They pushed. Joe, we've called this. If Florida had one good thing for them defensively, we talked about that D-line. And that physical Georgia O-line came out there and splattered them all over the place. And then the Bell kid. He is the least talked about player in the country, number 86.
Yep.
Joe, not only is he running the football as a running back, Joe, later in the game, he lined up outside and in double coverage, ran a fade route in the red zone and scored. They are as dynamic and as multiple as anybody in the country. Everybody thinks it's just run game defense with Georgia. The shit it is, they are wide ass open. And Joe, I'm going to continue to go back to exactly the same take that I had in the offseason or non-playing portion of the year. Who said Mike Bobo can't call plays?
Because, right, that's the thing that bugs me the most is that
I mean, he is in his bag, Joe.
Yes. It was so stupid, and this is why I sometimes fall victim to this. But we do this shit every time in the first month of the season. We already project everything that's going to happen. There's certain things that you can conclude after a couple of weeks, like Lincoln Riley has a shit team. That one we could easily conclude. But what we shouldn't have concluded is that a new offensive coordinator and a first-time starting quarterback, we're going to take a couple of weeks to figure it out. It wasn't just going to hit the ground running. In the history of college football, that has never happened. Even when Garrett Riley was leading that TCU team, it took him a couple weeks to get that many points on the board. It took him that Oklahoma game to really splatter someone and show that they were explosive. It takes time. We got to be patient with stuff like this. And we know that Georgia is built the way that they are. We'll eventually see the results. This isn't Tommy Rees in Alabama. This is Mike Bobo, who's been around the block, and a highly rated quarterback recruit. They're going to be fine.
Yeah, they're going to be
SEC's
fine.
got to watch out.
For who? Who's not watching out for Georgia?
Well,
The
I'm sure them.
Hey,
Wait, there's fans of the conference that thought they could beat them, I bet, in the first month of the season.
Nah, well, maybe. I mean,
come on.
That's the most New Jersey thing you said. Come on. I will say that but I'm not. They still got things that they. What my whole point though was, they still have things that they have to prove. Like, is it a big win? And what they did, was it impressive? Highly impressive. Highly impressive. Because Florida's not the team that they were last year. They're a better team overall. But the next 2 weeks is going to be, for me, okay, this is the time that Georgia's about to make a statement. And they got two really talented offenses that are coming in there. Let's see how they figure it out. One final thing, something I'm going to have to research because I don't know this. How many straight games has Kirby won? Because he won 2 playoff games, okay, after they lost to Bama.
I know it's 24 straight SEC games. Wait.
Well, if it's 24 straight SEC games, then no.
That's not right.
He's won
They
2,
said it during the
15
broadcast.
17, and they're what? 8-0, 9-0 now? 25 says Rushman and Chris.
25 in a row?
25 in a row, dude.
Wait, when was their last loss? It was
Alabama in the SEC championship game.
In 2021, though.
Yeah, 2021. So they've gone a year and a half without losing.
I'll count it up after to confirm, but I think 25's right. I believe 25 is correct.
God bless it, dude. That is, you know what that is? Can I tell you what that is? That's
what?
NCAA. That's exactly what I'm doing on NCAA.
Yes, that's playing a video game.
Will never lose another game under me, ever. I did get beat by. I did lose my. I was going for a 6-peat. I got beat by Iowa.